The lack of human dignity experienced by Africans is the direct result of the policy of white supremacy. White supremacy implies black inferiority.
Legislation designed to preserve white supremacy entrenches this notion. Menial tasks in South Africa are invariably performed by Africans. When anything has to be carried or cleaned, the white man will look around for an African to do it for him.
Whether the African is employed by him or not. Because of this sort of attitude, whites tend to regard Africans as a separate breed. They do not look upon them as people with families of their own. They do not realize that they have emotions, that they fall in love like white people do, that they want to be with their wives and children like white people want to be with theirs, that they want to earn enough money to support their families properly.
To feed and clothe them and send them to school. And what houseboy or garden boy or laborer can ever hope to do this?
Pass laws, which to Africans are among the most hated bits of legislation in South Africa,
Render any African liable to police surveillance at any time. I doubt whether there's a single African male in South Africa who has not, at some stage, had a brush with the police over his pass.
hundreds and thousands of Africans are thrown into jail each year under pass laws. Even worse than this is the fact that pass laws keep husband and wife apart and lead to the breakdown of family life.
Poverty and the breakdown of family life have secondary effects. Children wander about the streets of townships because they have no schools to go to, or they have no money to enable them to go to school, or no parents at home to see that they go to school. Because both parents, if there are two, they have to work to keep the family alive. This leads to a breakdown in moral standards, to an alarming rise in illegitimacy.
And to growing violence, which erupts not only politically, but everywhere. Life in the townships is dangerous.
There's not a day that goes by without somebody being stabbed or assaulted. And violence is carried out of the townships into the white living areas. People are afraid to walk alone in the streets after dark.
Housebreaking and robberies are increasing, despite the fact that the death sentence can now be imposed for such offenses.
Death sentences cannot cure the festering sore.
Africans want to be paid a living wage
Africans want to perform work which they are capable of doing.
and not work which the government declares them to be capable of.
Africans want to be allowed to live where they can obtain work and not be endorsed out of an area because they were not born there.
Africans want to be allowed to own land in places where they work and not to be obliged to live in rented houses which they can never call their own.
Africans want to be a part of the general population and not confined to living in their own ghettos. African men want to have their wives and children live with them where they work and not be forced into an unnatural existence in men's hostels
African women want to be with their menfolk
and not to be left permanently widowed in the reserves. Africans want to be allowed out after 11 o'clock at night and not to be confined in their rooms like children. Africans want to be allowed to travel in their own country and to seek work where they want to.
and not where the Labor Bureau tells them to.
Africans want a just share in the whole South Africa. They want security and a stake in society. Above all, we want equal political rights because without them, our disabilities will be permanent. I know this sounds revolutionary to the whites in this country because the majority of voters will be African,
This makes the white man fear democracy.
but this fear cannot be allowed to stand in the way of the only solution which will guarantee racial harmony and freedom for all.
It is not true that the enfranchisement of all will result in racial domination.
Political division based on color is entirely artificial.
When it disappears, so will the domination of one color group by another.
The African National Congress has spent half a century fighting against racialism. When it triumphs, it will not change that policy. This, then, is what the African National Congress is fighting. Their struggle is a truly national one. It is a struggle of the African people inspired by their own suffering and their own experience. It is a struggle for the right to live. During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination.
I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve.
But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.